This thing about not being proactive is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
How do you mean?
Every time, as soon as the game starts, you are reactive. Simple as that. You can't be
the French
proactive.
weren't they? The French weren't they? It cuts both ways, isn't it?
Well, they made one substitute in the 80th minute.
But fine,
that's not been. I tell you what, Simon. How many times?
You just said how the game starts.
Yeah, once it starts.
England started in a certain way.
And they weren't great.
And the French imposed themselves upon England.
And England changed at half time.
And England changed and got themselves into the game.
Well, that's a reaction.
And we can keep on. Well, it's a change of mentality, isn't it? And I think that came from the pitch rather than from the manager.
How do you know that?
Well, I would surmise. How do you know it wasn't?
Because they're a very, very young side. That would have come from the coaches.
Right. So when England allowed French to impose themselves to a point where they scored,
they didn't allow. The French are a very good side. They've got some outstanding players in there.
You just said that the English outplayed them.
They did in the second half.
So put aside the nonsense about on paper, because you don't win games on paper, you win games on the pitch.
Okay.
So you just argued for the fact that England imposed themselves after a period of time in this game, dominated certain passages of the game, were unlucky not to win this game. They were, and the effectiveness of a coach is to change things. The Croatian game, go back to that in 2018, we could see what was happening, everyone could see what was happening.
And they were much better than us.
There was a need for a change.
So they were better than us.
Well, that's your view. And
they were.
They weren't in the first half, were they? In the second half, they got better. No, in the first half they weren't. Everyone to a man knows in the first half England were better and Croatia were dreadful in the first half. In the second half they got much better, we didn't match them. The Italians, in the first 15 and 20 minutes, we were in control of the game, the Italians adjusted. We didn't adjust and we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited and waited until the Italians did something. And that something was equalised.
How many times, Simon, were you proactive as an owner? How many times when you were on a good run, your manager was in charge, was winning games, you got promoted, did you think, you know what, I can see what's going to happen in 2-3 months' time, I'll sack the manager?
Oh, quite frequently. That's
never.
Danny, I had
Never did you do it, Simon?
Well, Danny,
you never got promoted and sacked a manager.
Danny, I had 8 managers in 10
but
years.
Were they on winning runs when you sacked them?
Never.
I've gone through it.
Because you tend to not fire people when things are going right. So if
the game is going right,
let's go back to it wasn't.
If the game is going right and you're on top,
well, let's go back to what you were saying then.
No, we're on top in the second half, Simon. You dispute that?
No, in Croatian. No, I don't. I do dispute that. I think
you don't think we were on top in the second half
onwards. The game was changing again. I think against the Italians the game changed. Against the Croatian the game's changed. And then what you have to do is you either roll with the change or you affect the outcome. The Italians changed against us and subsequently got a better result. The Croatians changed against us. We didn't react. Now you are absolutely spot on, and I would bow to a greater knowledge of football knowledge, of course. But when England took the game back from the French, which basically we've had enough of this now. We're going to put ourselves on the game and start believing on ourselves. And Stuart Pearce gave a brilliant analogy about players walking on the pitch, not having that respect for the opposition, being aware of who they are, but not going on there with a respectful mentality, going on there like Jude Bellingham did, and going on there like Jordan Henderson, which is basically not being disrespectful, but hang on a second, we're here, why about us? And when England got that mentality, about midway through the first half, they imposed themselves upon the French until the sort of 65th, 70th minute. And then you could see the French building again. And there was a build-up, and it came, and it finished it.
Ebb and flow. You never, ever dominate for 90 minutes.
And the outcome, because the tragedy for people like you is what you do is you deny the outcome and suggest that ultimately the outcome is just... It's written in the stars.
And the outcome
is the end product.
Yeah. Okay, then. So on that basis,
nothing is more important than the outcome.
So on that basis, Simon, would you say that Pep Guardiola is an inept coach? Because that's what you think is Gareth Southgate.
I don't.
Tactical challenge.
No, that's your words. Why would I think he's an inept coach?
You think he should go? You don't think he's good enough to get us to the next level?
I don't think that in any other walk of life, 3 strikes and you're out. That's how it works.
Okay, so Guardiola, how many strikes in the Champions League?
I have no idea. Do I think he's done a good job in the Champions League? No. But he's winning domestic leagues. Our boys winning nothing.
But that's not what he was brought in to do.
Well, how do you know?
The bottom line,
because the whole point was because they'd won it previously.
But Danny, wouldn't you concede the bottom line is outcome? And here you are again.
Well, so in that case, then,
and the callers,
when you talk about being defensive,
what's got to do with it? Why are we going into an area of constant whataboutery? We're talking about what about what Pep Guardiola's doing? What about what my uncle or my aunt's doing? What about what I did as an owner of a football club? We're talking about Gareth Southgate and three tournaments.
So what did he do wrong in that game? All of them.
Well, the tragedy for us, Danny, the unfortunate part of this argument is whenever we play a side that on paper we might have difficulty beating, we lose. That's the end of the discussion. Thank you very much.
Because they're better
Give it till next week. Well, you've got to beat teams. You've got to be able to evolve. If the only teams you beat are the ones that you should, what's that saying then?
It's almost as if there's no point in getting in against them then, Danny. England had a great chance. Would you not concede,
Danny? Of course they had a great chance.
It is a massive opportunity lost.
But every time you lose is a massive opportunity.
But it's
lost.
happening too often.
That's
undeniable.
You get one opportunity.
That's not two World Cups
2
in the
years.
trot with the Euros in
Yeah, but
between.
hang on. Look at the squad and look at the side that we played in the first World
A
Cup that
chance
Gareth
like
was manager.
Saturday night might not come along
Nobody
again.
went into that
You
thinking,
might not get a group, Danny,
Jim,
like
nobody.
Iran, USA and Wales, as straightforward and simple as that again
But we
in
got
the
out of
group
the group.
stages of a World Cup finals. Of course you did. That was the least you were expected to do.
And then
of
you
course
beat.
you did.
And then you beat.
You beat the African champions,
African
Senegal,
champions.
fair play.
And then you
But were
come up against
expected
the
to
world
beat them.
champions.
Who
And
everybody
then I
thought-
would say it was 50-50. I think you would agree with me. 50-50 against the French.
If Harry Kane scores that penalty,
We go. We level up.
and then we go on and win the game because momentum is in our favour, I genuinely believe that, and I think most football people would believe
So
that.
why should every English fan listening
It
this
may
morning be
changes.
comfortable
It may changes
that Gareth
and Mount
takes
wins
you
the
to
penalty.
2024?
It may change as Mount wins the penalty.
When we equalised,
If that penalty goes in, tactical genius.
when we equalised,
We've seen substitutes come on and score with their first touch. You go, oh, masterstroke by the coach.
True.
Absolute nonsense. You get lucky from
and
time to time.
I agree with that. When we equalised, momentum was with us. The game was ours. But it's
And then the French have
went out and
experience
scored
and
another
wrestled
goal.
it back.
So there's no guarantee that if we scored that penalty, that the French wouldn't have gone and done the
what's
same
the
thing again.
missing ingredient, Danny? What
Experience.
needs to change
Experience.
to make you win?
Experience.
Okay.
The average age of a World Cup winning side or a Euro team is 27, 28. We are way below that because we don't have the experience. We were better than we were in the Euros. We didn't panic when we went 1-0 down. Didn't panic when we went 2-1 down. Didn't change. Started to play a little bit. You're talking about a 19-year-old, 20-year-olds in there.
No, who's
Look at-
Bellingham? Exceptional.
Yeah, but still lacks that experience to deal with those situations. There was points where he was a little bit. You could tell some of his decisions were emotional
But
decisions.
he was one of your big success stories on Saturday.
But it's all about experience, Jim. Look at the great teams. Germany, when they had a rethink, you get to quarterfinals, final, semi-final, quarterfinal, win it. Success is never linear. You don't just go in a straight line. You don't go semi-final, final, win it.
Of course not.
No team has ever done that. You've got to have your knockbacks. This wasn't Iceland.
True.
This wasn't Brazil in the second half of 2002 where we never had a shot on target. This is not other games where we've lost, where we've been poor in the second half or things
no one's
haven't changed.
disputing that. But we're landing in the same space every single time. Every time we play a side that it's a 50-50 game or slightly on paper in favour of the opposition, because on paper it was in favour of the French, you're right. When the match unfolded, it wasn't in favour.
You're always on the wrong side of the result,
What's
Danny.
that got to do with anything? You're taking a low standard and using that as
Italy,
the...
if those three if they score the penalties, you win that, and you come out and say, you know what, unbelievable.
But we
to hold
didn't.
the Italian. Yeah, but you're talking about a penalty, Simon. That's not
we
due to
didn't.
tactics.
And we missed another penalty.
That's nothing to do
And
with
we'll talk
tactics.